Let us now prepare ourselves for the puja. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinnadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapama dattana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now let us sit comfortably or get into a posture that is comfortable to you. Important thing is make sure you are completely relaxed. We're going to do a bit of breath meditation. And we need to try something, a bit of new way of counting. And you can, of course, go back to the way that you are familiar with when you have any difficulties. Just do it gradually, slowly, see what works for you. Watch the breath coming in, going out just as it is. As your breath comes in and goes out, just be aware of it. Now, as I said, we will try something new. And we're going to count the breath from the start to in-breath. So when you breathe in, you count 1 to 5. No more than 5, be too long, just 1 to 5 first. So as you breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the breath is shorter, you can cut down the numbers. If the breath is really long, you can go a bit, give more numbers, but don't go beyond 10. 5 is a good number to start with. So breathe in slowly as the breath comes in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a bit of controlling of the breath at the start. This is to help you focus. And then when you breathe out, you can count 1 to 5 as usual, or you can try backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now this one needs some practice. You might not get it today, but remember the steps. Then try it and use it if it works for you. Otherwise, you can anytime you can slowly just change back to the old way of counting that you like. If your breath is short, then you use the old way of counting. If your breath is a bit long, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then breathe out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You need a bit more focus. If you control your breath slightly, then as you get your focus, you just let it go, let it settle down. Alright, if you are unable to do it properly all the time, take some time to practice this. You need at least 2-3 days of practice to really do it properly. So just take your time. And once you feel peaceful, you go back to the normal way of counting, or you can go into the second stage. Those of you who have just come in, just watch your breath and you breathe in. Just follow the breath and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then when you breathe out, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If that is difficult, then you can try breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See which method helps you focus better. We'll stop the counting, go on to the second stage, in, out. When the breath comes in, just note it as in. When the breath goes out, note it as out. In, out. In, out, and smile. Always remember to smile. Focus on the in-out breath. At the end of the in-breath, note it as in. Or if you like, just before the breath comes in, and also note in. See which way is easier for you. Then when you breathe out, note as out. Or just before the breath gets ready to go out, note it. Choose the method that works for you. Your breath calm and relaxed. Whenever the mind wanders off, gently bring it back to watch the breath. Just mindfully bring it back with a smile to the breath. Watch your breath. You may notice there is a space growing between the in and out. When you, after you breathe in, and then there is a space. Then you breathe out, another space. Now they're not even, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you might not notice them. It may take some time. These spaces will arise naturally, so it's all right if you don't notice them here. Practice on your own. Notice those spaces. That is the third stage. Smile at the spaces. Difficulties or distractions, just smile. Let those thoughts come. Let them go. Stage 4 is when you feel so very peaceful, you don't feel like saying anything. You just watch the peacefulness just as it is, and you stay with it as long as you can. If you notice anything that appears strange, like some lights or some visions, just smile at them. Let them go. Don't follow them. They are just extra features that arise during meditation. Just feel the peace, smile at the peace. Remember all these steps and practice them in your own time. Now we will review our practice. We will examine more or less how we felt. Remember the peaceful moments, joyful moments, remember them. Even their memory will be helpful when you feel any kind of low emotion, you have difficulties. Just remember this peaceful moment. It will help you clear your mind. Or remember them to start off your meditation. Also, if you like, remember any difficulties that you may have, any hindrances. Just remember them so that you can ask questions about them or prepare yourself better so that you can avoid them and improve your meditation the next time. The idea is to be diligent. Don't give up in your practice. Just let go of the mind, smile. Just keep on sitting wherever you can. Review your practice. Now, to end the session, you can open your eyes, but just sitting for a short while to get back into this world, so to speak. We begin our meditation slowly, gently. We end it also slowly, gently. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Right, very good. So we can begin with our study, continue our study now. So now we are studying part 2 of the Mahanidana Sutta, Digha Nikaya, Sutta 15. The first part, the Buddha talked about the 9-stage dependent arising. Okay, so if you missed that one, look at the video again and have the sutta before you. So today the sutta continues with the Buddha explaining to us some deeper aspects of Buddhist psychology, if you like, and also cosmology. Okay, the first part, the psychology part, talks about how we describe the self. When we talk about the self, here the Buddha is trying to show that when we talk about the self, they are all conceptions, these are ideas we use. Okay, and the Buddha shows that that's how they are really. Don't get lost with all those kind of ideas. Then in the second part, the Buddha talks about different levels of existence possible, right? And that's quite interesting. We'll come to that a little later. Section Roman number 2, talk on the rounds. Right, you can see where my arrow is. Right, you can see here. Vata kata. Vata means the rounds. This is another word for samsara. The rounds, round and round we go in rebirth, rebirth. Kata means talk. In the Malay word kata, right? This is kata, this is the original Pali and Sanskrit word. So in this section, the Buddha is going to talk about how self-views arise. So how do we describe the self? When we talk about the self, there are 4 ways we can talk about it. Okay, I'm going to read through this and then explain, try to simplify for you. In fact, the Buddha, in a way, has simplified some of these teachings. The Buddha lists the teachings, and then second part will explain. 23 is the list, like a syllabus, and 24 he goes into details. 23. To what extent, Ananda, does one, when describing the self, describe it? Okay, this is sutta language, like programming language. In simple colloquial way of talking, how do we describe the self? How do we talk about the self when we do talk about it? Or how can we really talk about the self? Can we really talk about the self? Those kind of questions. Number 1, Ananda, says the Buddha, one describing the self as having form and being limited describes it thus. The form has, myself has form and is limited. Okay, so this is one view. Number 2, O Ananda, one describing the self as having form and being unlimited. So first one is limited, second one is unlimited. Describes it thus: myself has form and is unlimited. 3, O Ananda, one describing the self as being formless and limited describes it thus: myself is formless and limited. Or Ananda, one describing the self as being formless and unlimited describes it thus: myself is formless and unlimited. So you have 2 pairs. The first pair is form plus limit, unlimited, right? And then second pair, formless, limited, unlimited. Okay, those are the lists. So now the Buddha goes on to a bit of detail. Okay, section 24. Number 1. Here, Ananda, the one who describes the self as having form and limited, either describes such a self as having form and limited now, okay, existing in the present, or describes such a self as having form and limited will be or will arise in the future. Or one thinks, what is not so, I will fashion it so that it is so. So here we're talking about the 3 periods of time. So here the Buddha is saying, you can think of self in terms of time, what I was, the self in the past, the self right now, and the kind of self in the future. Okay, so when we talk about form, which is limited, our form, for example, it is like that. This form and is limited. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. This being the case, says the Buddha, it is right to say that the notion of a self as having form and being limited lies latent in one. So this is the the kind of an idea we must understand. It is an idea that is stuck in us, that kind of is latent. It's a latent tendency. Somehow we like the idea, or that's the way we've been thinking, so we come up with this idea, right? So so that is the number 4, right? No, sorry, I think I jump a bit, huh? Yeah, okay. So, all right, so that's the last line, lies latent, and then or one describes such a self as one that will be, or one describes the self will, is not so. I will fashion it to be so. All right, so the second case, this person, when he's thinking about the future, he says, okay, if what I don't have now, in the future, I will have it. I will get this, I will go to heaven, or I'll be reborn with this, into this boundless self, whatever, universal self, right? So this kind of idea. So this being the case, it is right to say all this notion of self having form and being limited lies latent. So it's already in the person's mind. The preconceived, another way of putting it, is preconceived. This person has this idea. So instead of examining what really is going on, this person is saying, it must be this. I want it to be this way, right? So this is the template. It's the first idea. Now, next section 24.2. Here, Ananda, the one who describes the self as having form and being unlimited. Okay, here there is form, but unlimited. Here, in other words, this self doesn't have any limits, but it has some kind of form, right? So here again, the same. The Buddha says this person has have to think of it in terms of either past, present, or future, right? So if that's the case, the Buddha says this person is just imagining it, right? So he's just if he wants to have this self to be permanent, he said, okay, I will imagine there is one. So in the future, there'll be one. So you imagine either in the past, in the present, or in the future, 3 periods of time, right? And then in the next section, you have the unlimited, right? So 24.2 here, Ananda, the one who describes the self as having form and being unlimited. And everything else is the same. Okay, so I won't read to you. So the Buddha said this person will think about it as existing now, this kind of self which has form and unlimited, existing now, or it existed in the past, or it will exist in the future. And if it does not exist, or if I cannot find it, I don't have it now, in the future I'm going to get it. Something like that, okay? Then the next one, 24.3, here Ananda, the one who describes the self as being formless and limited. Formless, limited. So this is just a kind of very imaginative way of thinking. A philosopher saying, okay, my idea of a self is that it has no form, but it's limited. It's limited. Something maybe like a spirit, if you like a ghost, got no form, but it is kind of, it's stuck here in this world, something like that, yeah? So again, this exists in the past, or may exist in the present, or will exist in the future, depending on our idea. So here the Buddha is saying all the possible ways of thinking. These are all wrong views, by the way, okay? So, of course, in the future, this person is like imagining that would be the case. And then the number 4, this is the last of the pairs. Here, Ananda, the one who describes the self as being formless and unlimited. Okay, so this one is the last pair, formless, also unlimited. Right? So this one is, there's no form and it's all over the place, so to speak. So imagine there must be this kind of form. It existed in the past, and some of them will say it exists right now. There is this kind of form or self, if you like, and it will exist in the future, and I'm going to get it. So these are 4 kinds of wrong views about the self. How, when people imagine about the self, they imagine either it has form or no form, it is limited or unlimited. These are the only 4 possible ways, says the Buddha, right? So that's how you describe it. So in the second part, the Buddha talks about non-description of the self. So in other words, when we give up the idea of the self, we don't talk in this way, all right? Like 25. To what extent, Ananda, does one, when not describing the self, not describe it? Here, Ananda, one not describing the self as having material form and being limited does not describe it. Thus, myself has form and is not limited, and is limited, sorry. Myself has form and is limited, or one not describing the self as having form and being unlimited does not describe it. Thus, myself has form and is unlimited. So here, remember, this is an oral tradition, so the Buddha being very careful, very exact what these people are thinking. So this is the other side of the argument. These are people who say, oh, there's no self, right? They say there's no such self. All the previous 4 kinds, they say one by one, they say this does not exist. Right, so now the idea here is this. The Buddha is saying, you have to be careful when you talk about the self, right? If you say there's a self, that's one kind of wrong view. It's called eternalism. It's based on eternalism. In other words, you're saying this self exists forever. So there's no such thing. It's just an idea. On the other hand, if you say there is no self, it's also tricky. You're saying that nothing exists. The self does not exist, right? So the Buddha is saying, when you talk either way, you get into this kind of situation. That is why, properly speaking, we must say that the Buddha teaches neither there is self nor no self. He does not bother about the self idea. And that's one way of putting it. But that's quite a difficult way to talk, right? I mean, it's quite a mouthful, and most people say, oh, I don't understand, you know. So the usual teaching we hear is anatta, non-self, right? Here again, you have a bit of a problem because anatta is quite clear. It's Pali. You know, I've been writing about this history of the this Kamatana meditators and the Vipassana meditators. Some of them have that. Some of the teachers say it's better to use Pali. Okay, you use the Pali terms. It's easier. You get in less problems, right? So if I were to say anatta, it's quite clear. After a while, when you study Buddhism, you know what I'm talking about. But it's not easy for people who are new. So we have to understand, what do we mean by anatta? Do we translate it as not self or non-self? There's a difference here. So now you hopefully you begin to see the important difference here. Now, usually we don't translate it as not self. If you say not self, that means there is a self to contradict it. Okay, so it's just a philosophical, semantic, or grammatical situation here. So we don't usually say not self. Okay, of course, I won't argue with anyone who used the word not self, but important thing is you understand what you're saying. On the other hand, if you say non-self, it means it has nothing to do with the self, right? So the Buddha is saying no such thing, right? So if you don't believe there's a self, you don't have to talk about there is a self, right? So we don't have to argue about it, just let it be. That's the meaning of non-self, okay? So that is why we have to be very careful when we talk about nirvana, right? If we can. Sometimes you hear some teachers saying, oh, nirvana is non-self, right? It's not exactly wrong, but it's not right either. No. To say nirvana is this, is that, you are relating nirvana to something. Okay, of course, I can say something which is not very helpless, like nirvana is not my cup here in front of me. See? Then I got to go and say, oh, nirvana is not so many things in the world. You know, it's not anything in this world. But that's true also, but it's not very helpful. It's too cumbersome, right? So we can also say nirvana is not samsara. Right? That's another way to make it easier. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit more helpful, but just by way of talking. This is a big problem, you know. Once we are not there yet, we have not attained nirvana, so we tend to talk a lot about it. But that's not it. No matter what we can say about nirvana, that's not it. A simple example is this analogy, this metaphor, the parable of the fish and the turtle. You know, the story goes that this, you know, there's this turtle. The turtle lives in the water, and then it comes out onto land, and then it moves around, and it goes back into the water. And in this story, of course, turtles and fishes can talk. So the fish meets this turtle, and the fish asks the turtle, where have you been? And the turtle says, oh, I've been on land. And the fish asks, what is land? Describe to us. And the turtle say, oh, you know, oh, it's this place, you know, they have trees, you know. Say, oh, what are trees? They say, ask the fish. They say, well, you don't have them here anyway. So then the fish asks, oh, what about corals? Do you have corals on the land and so on? And of course, the turtle said no. So you imagine the turtle is talking about land, and the fish has never been on land. How do you describe land? All right. So you have the problem here. We're talking about something we have not experienced. So there's the danger in talking about nirvana, something you must experience yourself. On the other hand, the Buddha does use some helpful metaphorical way of talking by indirectly pointing. The most famous, of course, is the fire, right? There's a fire burning, and Vacchagotta is asking the Buddha about nirvana. Then the Buddha puts out the fire and say, where's the fire gone, right? And then Vacchagotta is clever enough. He says, well, it's gone nowhere, it's just gone out. So nirvana also is like that. It's just all the defilements have gone out. Fire has gone out. Suffering has gone out. That's it. That's nirvana. That's as far as language goes. Okay, so you can see the difficulty here we're dealing with. All right, nature of language. So we stay with non-self. It is safer. Just reflect on that. All right. So this when we don't talk about it. Yeah. So the whole section here, I've summarized for you. They're put into very clear sentences, all the possible statements. Yeah. Now we go down to 27. The self is meaningless apart from experience. So if we do talk about any talk about the self, what we mean by the self must be related to either what we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, that interconnection, right? Self, inverted commas. So in a way, you can say there is the big self, small self, if you like, or the dhamma way of talking and the worldly way of talking. Okay, the worldly way, some people say, oh, there is this self which is like this, like that, but dhamma way, the self is none of this. All right. So it is how we experience things, we relate to it, and then we think there is a self. If you have been following our study on the 5 aggregates about consciousness, right? Now we know of consciousness as moment to moment of experience. There is this sense of continuity. That's how we remember. We also remember what we experience. So because we remember, because there's the continuity, we think, oh, this must be a kind of complete set, something unchanging. It must exist like that all the time. But that's not the case. Here again, imagine this movie you're watching, okay? There is this bright light that shines through one particular frame each time, every few seconds. One frame at a time, right? Only when you see all the frame, the movie makes sense. So we cannot say, oh, this movie is this frame or that frame. It doesn't make sense at all. You can see all the frames. Well, that's not very helpful either. So we don't really talk about the frames. We just watch the movie, okay? So that's another puzzle we can think about, this problem of the self. That is why it is really difficult, even impossible, to discuss the idea, to discuss this self, how it exists. So it depends on how you think. This is what the sutta is trying to tell us. So 27. In what ways, Ananda, does one contemplating the self contemplate it? Here is thinking about it. Here, Ananda, one contemplates the notion of the self, contemplate it thus, feeling is myself. Or, Ananda, one contemplating the notion of self, contemplating thus, feeling is not myself. Myself is without the experience of feeling. Or, Ananda, one contemplating the notion of the self, contemplating it thus, feeling is not myself, but myself is not without feeling. Myself feels. Myself is of the nature to feel. So you have three ways of looking at this, right? So number one is that self and feeling are the same thing. Number two, the idea feeling is not self. It's not the self, okay? Number three, although feeling is not the self, but then the self also can feel. So these are philosophical ideas. So here again, the Buddha is saying these are the three possible ways of people think about the self. This is how they must think. And then the Buddha explains how a Buddhist should think about the self. 28. In this case, Ananda, of the one who says, feeling is myself, he should be asked, okay, we should ask this person, friend, there are these three kinds of feelings, pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neutral feeling. Of these three kinds of feeling, which do you consider the self? All right. So the person who says, oh, okay, self is my feeling, all right? The self equals the feeling, the soul equals the self. Now, this is quite a tricky statement because we can easily ask this person, if you say the self is feeling, is your feeling, how you feel, your emotions, and so on. But when we talk about feelings, there are three kinds of feelings, right? Something pleasant, something unpleasant, and neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So now which one of these three is the self? Because the moment he points to one, then he negates himself. Because you can't just take one, pleasant, and then leave out the other two, right? So there you are. You have this big problem when you say problem, when you say self. This feeling. The point the Buddha is making here is quite simple. Feeling changes. So in such a series of changes, you cannot postulate, you cannot say, cannot claim there is this unchanging self. Everything is changing. Of course, we can in daily language, when we are speaking, you can say, I am feeling something, I'm feeling like this, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. It's a conventional way of talking of the self. So the word atta, meaning self, has got two senses, right? One is the daily conventional way of talking. That's the way we use so that we can communicate. That's all, nothing more. The other one, the idea that it exists as a permanent reality. That one we reject. Using the idea of self as way of talking, that's fine. It helps us to talk, okay. But that's it. Don't take it anything more than that. Don't take it too seriously, in other words. Okay. So that's the meaning here. Okay. And then when one experiences a pleasant feeling, one does not at the same time experience a painful feeling or a neutral feeling. At that moment, one experiences only a pleasant feeling, right? So the Buddha goes on into details. Is where you feel any one of this pleasant feeling, you don't feel the other two. And you feel the unpleasant feeling, you don't feel the other two. If you notice the neutral feeling, again, you don't notice the other two, right? So they kind of exclude the other two, right? So the self is not complete. You can't have an idea of the self there, in other words, in the ultimate sense, right? Right, so now the Buddha goes on to say, kind of remind us, confirm that feelings are impermanent, right? 29. Ananda, a pleasant feeling is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ending. The same thing, a painful feeling also. It's impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ending. Neutral feeling also the same, but it's a bit more difficult to notice. Neutral feeling also is impermanent, right? If when one experiences a painful feeling, one thinks, this is myself, then with the ending of that painful feeling, one thinks, or one would think, myself is gone, right? So it's quite simple logic here. I mean, if you think that the pleasant feeling is the self, and when it ends, no more self, right? Same thing. If you say, oh, okay, there's a painful feeling is myself, but then even painful feeling goes away. It's impermanent. Neutral feeling also the same. So you cannot use the idea of feeling as a self, right? So this is quite clear enough. Eh? And yet, we have to admit we are what we feel, right? The next section, 30. Section 30. Here, Ananda, of the one who says, feeling is not myself, my feeling is without the experience of feeling, he should be asked, friend, when there is nothing at all that is felt, could the idea I am occur here? Certainly not, Bhante. Therefore, Ananda, it is unacceptable to contemplate thus. Feeling is not myself, myself is without the experience of feeling, right? So here, again, there's a level of semantics, how language, how words are used. If you say there is no feeling, then how can you talk about I feel like this, I feel like that? See, so this is the middle way of reality. See, you cannot say there's a self, there's no self, because when you talk, say I am feeling something, right? So see this simply as is the way we talk. This is conventional language. Don't get caught up with it. Don't get carried away with it. That's the message the Buddha is giving us here. So don't hold to the idea there is a self. Don't hold to the idea there's no self. This is not easy for everybody, as I said. We always think there must be an idea the Buddha is teaching, got self or no self. This is how Aristotle taught, is either black or white, yes or no, on or off, But in Buddhist philosophy, it's possible to reject both. All right? Just don't talk about it, because this has nothing to do with what is going on. This has nothing to do with what is going on. Just reflect on that, okay? So now the Buddha goes on to tell us how feelings change. 31, okay? Here, Ananda, of the one who says feeling is not myself, but my feeling is not without feeling, he should be asked, friend, If feeling were to utterly and without remainder, then when feeling does not exist at all, and the ending of feeling, with the ending of feeling, could the idea I am occur there? Again, certainly not, Bhante. Therefore, Ananda, it is unacceptable to contemplate that feeling is not myself, but myself is not without the experience of feeling. So this person is saying, okay, I agree there is no self, but feeling exists. So here the Buddha is saying, if that's the case, then can you say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that? You can't, right? But you still talk about it. So there is this idea of conventional self, but we do refer to it indirectly, not that it really exists, but it's just a way of talking. Here the Buddha is saying basically, forget the idea of the self, all right? And in the next section, one who clings not to the world. Don't cling to anything, in other words. No? 32. Ananda, when a monk does not regard feeling as the self and does not regard self as without experience of feeling and does not contemplate thus, myself feels, for myself is of the nature to feel, then being without such consideration, he does not cling to anything in this world. Not clinging, he is not agitated, unagitated or undisturbed, he attains nirvana for himself. He understands birth, destroy this birth, this holy life has been lived, and what needs to be done has been done. There is for me no more of arising in any state of being. All right. So here the Buddha says, don't get caught up with all this idea, a self, no self. Does it feel? Does it not feel? Right? If you get caught up with it, that you will not find the answer. The other day I went for this question and answer session with medical students who are doing psychology. They're doing mindfulness, meditation plus medicine. So they asked me the hard question. So, you know, in modern psychology, we still are unable to measure mindfulness. That's the big problem. So I told them, well, the day you can measure mindfulness, you don't need Buddhism. Because in Buddhism, we talk about things which are measurable, that is samsara, and things which are not measurable, that is in the mind, in nirvana, so to speak. The last one I got to be very careful, in nirvana, okay? We just say, there are immeasurable things. When you go into meditation, when you close your eyes, you watch your breath in and out, you're counting your breath, yes. But after that, you let go of the stage. Then you get into this happy stage, peaceful stage. You can't measure peacefulness, you can't measure happiness. So I told the class, I said, well, there are some things you can't measure. And if psychology is to progress into the next generation, next millennium, millennium is too long, next generation, you got to solve this puzzle. How do we talk about mindfulness, or how do we understand mindfulness? You got to understand the nature of the immeasurable. So we don't talk about there's a self, there's no self. We talk about the immeasurable on the deeper level in meditation. All right. So that's one way of looking at it, something to think about. Immeasurable means you cannot really measure ideas. Is there a self? No self? Then you get yourself into a lot of trouble when try to talk about it. Then the Buddha talks about this person who's enlightened. Just now I just read to you the attaining of arahathood. Okay, so this arahat, he will not have this kind of ideas. There are 4 ideas he will let go of, or the 4 possible ways of stating a truth. 32.2. Ananda, if anyone should say of a monk whose mind has thus been freed that he holds the views that the Tathagata exists after death, that would not be proper, right? So we cannot say the Buddha. Here, Tathagata actually is a broad term. It means someone who has died. Of course, you can, in this case, think about Arahat. Does he still exist after death? You can say yes or no. Or he holds the view of the Tathagata does not exist after death. You can't say this either, especially if you're a Buddhist. Of course, if you're a materialist, you say, yeah, no such thing, right? But the Buddhist said, no, you don't know, you can't say that. The reality is we don't know. Or that he holds the view of the Tathagata both exist and does not exist after death, right? So what about both? Well, it's quite tricky here. Again, you can't say this, okay? Or number 4, neither. Can we say neither exists or not exists? Again, doesn't make sense anyway, okay? Now, of course, these 4 statements are really difficult philosophically, but let me simplify it. These are what I call the 4 possible states of truth according to Indian philosophy. Something is, number 2 is not, number 3 both is and is not, number 4 neither is nor is not. I remember long ago I explained this, but let me just explain again for the present audience. Something is, for example, I have a cup here and I say my cup is white in color, right? My cup is white in color, okay? So you can see this cup is white in color, all right? So it is, right? But here you can see my cup's cover. I don't know whether you can see. I think the problem with this camera, you can't see. Anyway, think of something different color, black color maybe. So it's not white, all right? So it is not, all right? Then there is both is and is not, all right? In other words, something is both black and white. Well, we talk about black and white painting, for example, black and white drawings, right? So it makes sense to say it's both black and white. So it makes sense because we can use it, talk with it in a useful way. What about the last one? Neither exists nor not exists. Neither black nor white. It's possible, even logically. It is something else, it's a color painting, right? It's got other colors. Besides, doesn't have black and white, you have other colors. So that is neither black nor white. So it makes sense to talk like that. So these are the 4 statements of Indian philosophy which the Buddha has used, okay? Then the Buddha goes on, or that he holds the views that the Tathagata neither exists or not exists after death, that would not be proper. So that is the 4th one. And then 32.3, what is the reason for this? Because that monk is freed from direct knowing, freed by direct knowing, rather. The Arahat is freed by direct knowing. Thus far, there is a way for destination. Again, that much you can know. Thus far, there's a way for language. That's how far language can be used to talk about it, but not further. Thus far, there is a way for defining it. That's how you can put into words. Thus far, there is a sphere for knowing, right? That's far how we can know with our ordinary mind. So this is quite tricky. There's some things you cannot know, right? For example, when someone else is suffering or someone else is happy, you can't really feel that, only that person feels it. To say of a monk who is freed by directly knowing that he holds the view one does not know, one does not see, that would not be proper, right? So this awakened person knows and sees, understands this, right? So this we can agree. But if you don't agree with this, then there's no way out. Right, so this is not an easy sutta, but I know you can feel, say, okay, I understand some, I don't understand some. We're talking about the problem of language here, about talking certain views. In other words, some things are better left unsaid. All right. Okay. So I will stop here for a while because it's 9 o'clock now, and then we go on to the next part in a moment. Okay. We'll take 5 minutes break.
Okay, we'll take 5 minutes break. Can we start now?
Okay, let's continue. All right, now we come to the concluding half of the sutta, the concluding part, last part, where the Buddha talks about what is called now this time it's called the ending of the rounds, Vivata Katha, section Roman number 3. So in order to understand the ending of the rounds, what is it that ends, so to speak? In other words, the Buddha now is going to talk about the various realms. Now, this part is very interesting, very more psychology than cosmology, actually. I mentioned cosmology earlier, but this actually is a psychological aspect of it. Now, we all here have heard of the 31 planes of existence, right? Those 31 planes of existence, they are arranged according to types of beings, devas, Brahmas, and then the subhuman world, of course, human beings. The 7 stations of consciousness rearrange all these beings into the nature of their mind and body. What kind of mind, what kind of body do they have? So it's very interesting in that sense, yeah? So this one is like a psychological examination, if you like. So in the first part, 33, the Buddha lists the 7 stations of consciousness, and then 34, he explains a bit with a bit more detail. The 7 stations here means that if any beings to arise, to exist, they have to exist in one of these forms. That's the meaning. There's no existence outside this 7. All right, so this is very interesting in that sense. Let's look at it, section 33. Ananda, there are these 7 stations for the consciousness, and there are 2 bases, okay? 7 stations plus 2 bases. Just remember that for a moment, then you understand why. 7 stations for the consciousness means the consciousness can only exist or be reborn in that kind of situation. 7 stations, 7 places consciousness can re-arise and exist. And there are 2 bases. Why are they called bases? We'll find out in a moment. What are the 7? 1, there are Ananda beings that are different in body, different in perception. That is to say, human beings, some devas, and some beings in the lower realms. All right. I'm going to just read through this. I'll explain it in the next section. Different in body, different in perception. Number 2, there are Ananda beings who are different in body, but same in perception. That is to say, beings of the Brahma world who have arisen through the first dhyana, first jhana. So this second group of beings, their consciousness are such that body is different, but perception you can take it as consciousness. The mind are the same way of thinking, okay? Number 3, there are Ananda beings who are the same in body, but different in perception. That is to say, the devas of streaming radiance, beautiful, bright lights, same in body, but different in perception. This is the 3rd station of consciousness. Now, don't worry, don't say, oh, I'm confused now. Same body, different, and so on. Just listen. That's how you get the wisdom. Listen. First time, it sounds a bit tricky. Then we let it sink in, and then slowly we begin to see the sequence. Number 4, there are Ananda beings who are the same in body and the same in perception. Body is same, Mind also same, the simple way of putting it. That is to say, devas of radiant glory, subhakina. So this is one level of the devas. The fifth station of consciousness, fifth possible way that the beings can exist, can arise. There are ananda beings who, through having utterly transcended the perception of physical forms, the passing away of perception of impingement, and non-attention to the perception of diversity, contemplating space is infinite, arrive at the base of infinite space. Now, if that's too many words for you, just remember this is the level, formless level of infinite space. Infinite space, endless space. This is the first formless space, formless realm. Okay, and then number 6, there are ananda beings who, through having utterly transcended the base of infinite space, contemplating consciousness is infinite, arrive at the base of infinite consciousness, right? So here they reflect consciousness is endless, right? That they're reborn in the next level of the formless world called the realm of the infinite consciousness, second formless world. The number numbers, have I read 6 already?
Yeah, but
all right, 7. There are ananda beings who, through having utterly transcended the base of infinite consciousness, contemplating there is nothing, arrive at the base of nothingness. So this is the third level, formless level. Okay. Then, so that's the 7 consciousness. And then now we come to the 2 bases, 32.2. And there is the base of non-perception beings, non-percipient beings, with the base of neither perception nor non-perception. That's the second. So there are 2 here. There is one realm called non-percipient beings or non-conscious beings. They are not called a station for consciousness because the consciousness there is so fine, you can't really say it exists or not exists. In the case of the non-percipient being, the asanya satta, the non-conscious beings, their consciousness is basically in what's called suspended animation. It has stopped for a while. They're not dead, but no consciousness. So it's not called a station of consciousness. And then the 4th formless realm, the highest formless realm in this world, the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. Again, their consciousness is so refined, you can't say exists or not exists. So it's not called a station of consciousness. It's simply called basis. So these are the 7 plus 2. So in a sense, we can say the 9 realms of existences, if you like. Now, then in the closing section, the next section, the Buddha talks about the true nature of these 7 stations of consciousness. 34. Ananda, regarding the first station of consciousness, whose beings are different in body and different in perception, that is to say, human beings, some devas, and some beings in the lower realms, whoever understands it, its arising is passing away, its satisfaction is dangerous, and the escape from it, it is proper for him to delight in it. Is it proper for him to delight in it? So here the Buddha is asking, if you really know the nature of all these realms, do you want to be born there? I mean, they are impermanent, they don't last long, you know. And even if you are born in the high plains, after the good karma is finished, then you fall from there. You go into a suffering state. It's the cosmic snakes and ladders. The snake and ladder game, remember, was invented to show this reality. You can go up, 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 very high, nearing the end already, and then there's this big snake waiting, and then you fall into the mouth of the snake, you go zap down back to 1. You start all over again. That is samsara, right around you go. So the Buddha said, we won't delight in this, right? You know very well, it's going to go round and round, right? So in this section, it's the same. The Buddha talks about all the other realms. They are like that. So if you know they're impermanent, they go up and down. You don't want to go even to the highest one. Okay. Now let me show you a diagram to help give you a better idea. Okay. So this diagram 10. Let's go to 10. Let me see if I can find it. Section 10, Wendy. Table 10. Can you see table 10? Yeah, you go up some more. You up. No, that's the bottom. This one is the bottom. You go up to page 163. There you are. Okay. Now you start at the bottom, second station for consciousness. Okay, there you are. Can you see second station of consciousness? All right. So here, beings different in body, same in perception, right? Here are the subhuman world, all those like animals, the asuras, petas, and hell beings. They have different body, but their minds are the same. How does it describe animals? Notice animals, they have different body, but their minds are the same in the sense that they'll behave the same. They all want food. They all have the same pattern. They don't think creatively differently. They don't differ in personality like humans do. That's the meaning. Different body, same mind, same perception. Okay, and that's clear enough, right? Now you go up a bit more, right? So here, sense realm. Can you see that? Number one, got to up a bit. Okay, that's good. A bit more, a bit slightly. You can see human beings at the bottom. Yeah, okay, good. Right, so sense realm. Okay, these are both sense realm 1 and 2. Station 1, station 2. First station, second station. Now, this is the first station for consciousness. Beings different in body, different in perception. Human beings, we are in this group. We are all different in mind, different in body, right? And also, all the gods of the sense world are like that, all right? So, the Nimanarati Deva, Paranimita Vasavati Devas, Tusita Deva, Yama Devas, Avatingsa Devas, and the Chatu Maharajika Devas, and some beings in the lower realms. This is quite interesting because in my house, if you see, I've got 2 cats, their personalities are very different, right? So you can notice if you show animals love, somehow they also begin to change a bit, begin to evolve a bit. They have different characters, all right? For example, my female cat, Picky, will know the time. When I rest, will come and meow at me and say, it's time to get up and do your work, or time for lunch, time for a break, and so on. Whereas the other big cat only knows when to come to sleep, right? So they have this, some of them do have these different personalities if they are very close up to humans, not all, but some. Then we have the next one, higher up a bit, second station again here, all right, number 2, oops, okay. Beings different in body, same in perception, different body, mind the same. Like here are the great Brahmas. All the Brahmas, the Brahmas ministers, Brahma souls. The Brahmas, their minds are all the same. First jhana, very happy, first jhana level, right? But they have different existence of their own, right? And then you have number 3, third station of consciousness, beings, same in body, different in perception. They are in one big common existence, okay? But they think differently. So these are the gods of the limited glory, Paritasubha, streaming glory, Abhasara, streaming radiance, sorry, Abhasara. And then boundless, oh wait, sorry, let me read that again. Third station, there are only 3 levels, the gods of streaming radiance, Abhasara, the gods of boundless radiance, Apanabha, Apamanabha, and then gods of the limited radiance, Paritasubha. These all, they have very great lights. Your energy is light, so they vary in the power of their lights. So the higher they are, the more powerful the light, so to speak. So this level, the third station, these gods, they exist like a common group, but they have different minds. Okay, and then fourth station, they have same body, same perception. Okay, so this one, they enjoy this same kind of joy, all existing together in a psychological community. All right. So these are the gods of abundant fruit, Vihapala, the gods of radiant glory, Subhakina, the gods of boundless glory, Apanabhasubha, the gods of limited glory, Paritasubha. Right. So this is the group. Yeah? And then of course you have the base only, that's the non-percipient beings, non-conscious being, Asanya Satta. These beings, they were in deep jhana, so their minds are totally cut off, just like that. The moment one thought arises, they fall from that state. All right. And of course, you have the highest level, fourth. It is a realm of neither perception nor non-perception. That also is based only. Okay. So here, this three, the three of the lower formless realm, you have 5, 6, and 7 station of consciousnesses. Each of them are special in themselves. All right. The base of infinite space, the base of infinite consciousness, the base of nothingness, because that's the way their mind is. So they exist like that, very high up, very refined existence. So this is how the Buddha explained the nature of the 7 types of consciousness. All right. Okay, now we come to the last part. Let's go back to the sutta and finish off. This the 8 liberations. Okay, here the Buddha is talking about how we become free from what? 35. Ananda, there are these 8 liberations. What are the 8? One with physical form, sees physical form. This is the first liberation. So basically, we get into this meditation, all right, in a form kind of meditation, and then you see form. Or you can also do this by doing kasina meditation. You see form outside, and you get into that level, so your mind is free. That's meaning of liberation here. And then here, number 2, one does not see physical form internally, but sees physical form externally, right? So this, especially in kasina meditation, the kasina is outside, and you see the kasina, it is extensive outside you, right? Whereas in number 1, the form is inside. You see it mentally. Number 3, one is liberated after contemplating the idea of the beautiful. Here, Subha. Subha. So this is, for example, color meditation, especially different kinds of color meditation. Then number 4, through the utter transcending a perception of physical forms and passing away of perception, inhibition, and non-attention to the perception of diversity, space is infinite, one enters and dwells in the base of infinite space. So this is the 4th liberation. This was attaining the formless realm of infinite space. Okay, and then number 5, through the utter transcending of infinite space, right? So this is the previous one. The person goes higher than infinite space and then reflects. Consciousness is infinite and attains that higher level of infinite consciousness. So this is the 5th liberation. 6, through the utter transcending of the base of infinite consciousness, there is nothing. So here reflect, let go even consciousness as object, and it sees there is nothing. Object is nothing. So it attains and dwells in the base of nothingness. So here again is the 3rd formless realm. And then finally, through the utter transcending of the base of nothingness, one enters and dwells in the base of neither perception nor non-perception. Remember, this is the highest level in our world. Neither perception nor non-perception, very subtle, right? So by letting go even nothingness as object, the person attains this level and exists for very long, many thousands of world cycles. Again, thousands of world cycles still impermanent, right? Now, number 8 is different. Through the utter transcending of the base of neither perception or non-perception, one enters and dwells in the cessation of perception and feeling, or simply called cessation. This level is only attained by arahats and some non-returners. No? So this one is basically experiencing nirvana in this life itself, the joy of the peace of nirvana, how nirvana is like as a meditation object. In other words, that's the meaning here, cessation. Cessation, perception ceases, feeling ceases. The person is technically dead, but the person is still alive. Like suspended animation. Only arahats like the Buddha and some non-returners can experience this. Okay, so now the sutta closes section 36. Ananda, when a monk attains these 8 liberations in a forward order or in a reverse order, or in both forward and reverse order, when he attains them and emerges from them, wherever he wishes, in whatever way he wishes, for as long as he wishes, and by realizing for himself, through direct knowledge, right here and now, with the destruction of the influxes, attains and dwell in the influx free freedom of mind, freedom by wisdom, then he's called a monk, freed both ways. Now, freed both ways is a term for the arahat. So here, the Buddha is talking about this arahat who meditates, attain all the various jhanas. It goes up, it goes down, and then he's free from all the defilements. He's free both ways in the sense that he attains jhana, and he's able to feel joyful about it, and he also gains wisdom of true reality. So 2 ways. There are those who have wisdom, but they don't have jhanas, okay? Or the jhanas not very powerful. So both ways are like Sariputta, Moggallana, the Buddha, of course. So there you are. This is really quite a breathless sutta, quite a big view of existence, how it arises, and what it contains, and how we are free from it. All right. So reflect on it and occasionally look at it. Some parts that you like, especially the 7 stations of consciousness, get to know it, or look at certain parts about ideas of thoughts and so on. And from there, you go to understand deeper the sutta. No? Well, I'm happy I'm able to share with you a bit of the sutta. I'm not saying I perfectly understand the sutta, but it is a really beautiful sutta to reflect on. Okay, now let's go to question time. We have about half an hour.
Thank you, Brother Piya. Yeah, it's time for question now. Please feel free to ask question live, or you can type in the chat box. At the moment, there is no question in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brother Piya, is this Paticca Samuppada?
The first part, yes, first part.
Okay.
The one about, the previous talk about the 9 stages, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone would like to ask question, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, you can either type the question or better put up your hand and say it live.
Can I take this opportunity to wish Teacher Piya a joyful Chinese New Year?
Sure. Same to you.
And Ratna and everybody.
Yeah.
May all
Thank you very
enjoy
much. Yeah.
good health
Yeah, thank
and
you.
happiness.
Happy New Year.
Mm.
Yeah, happy Chinese
you.
New Year. I also would like to ask this question. Just now you mentioned the 7 liberation. Is that ekagata?
No, no, different. Ekagata simply means one-pointedness of the mind in meditation.
I see.
Okay, but these
Thank
one
you.
are different realms of existence.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
There is a question
Yeah.
from Ji Guan Liu.
Okay.
For 32.2, is it related to Nagarjuna's tetralemma or negation of 4 proposition?
Yeah, of course. The 4, what they call it, tetralemmas, if you like. Chatuskoti, as they call in Sanskrit. The 4 points. They're very common in Indian philosophy, and of course, what Nagarjuna did was to negate all of them. So he turned everything upside down in that sense. Yeah. Yes, they're the same. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Next question.
No more questions for now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming. Any question in the chat box?
No more. Mm.
Now, some suttas are very easy, especially those for daily practice. Some can be very profound. It shows that Buddha has very deep understanding of the nature of the mind. So we should not be afraid that the sutta is really deep, because the suttas are talking about the nature of the mind. There are scholars out there today who are very curious about what the Buddha is talking, and they're trying to make sense of what they themselves know. In a sense, those people who are studying in a university, they're coming to the frontiers of their knowledge. They know so much nowadays. They say, what else can we know? Okay. So now they're discovering that, wow, the Buddha knows certain things 2,500 years ago, which they never thought about till today. So they're using their new understanding, science and psychology, and examining all this. And it's really exciting, it's really interesting. For example, I was reading through some papers on psychology, when I was going for this question answer with the medical students. They even did research and experiments with the counting meditation, when they're doing counting and they see the effects of counting, how it works and so on. And right now I'm writing this kind of a brief history of samatha and vipassana in Myanmar, the vipassana in Myanmar, and the Kamatana tradition in Thailand. And you see all these ideas coming in, So it's very interesting to see how the different monks think about the nature of the mind, about how to meditate, about counting. They go into different ways of counting. Like, for example, I taught you today the counting 1 to 5 and then backwards 5 to 1. Buddhadasa does that. And then you have this monk in Myanmar called Sundun Sayadaw who does breath control method. So there are different ways of doing breath. Right now I am writing about samatha in the West. So there is a group in the West that have been growing for the last 50 years, mind you, 50 years, started by a layman meditator from Thailand. And this group is very active. It started with a group of scholars. So you see this meditation is a living tradition today. It's really exciting to know all these things. So this is a paper, it's called SD 60.1. Okay, it is in volume 60, which marks the 20th anniversary of our work, by the way, translation work. So this is volume 60.1. Actually, the 3 parts, 1A, B, C, by the way, all right? But 60.1A is about character analysis, which is found in the Visuddhimagga, and also what kind of character suits what kind of meditation. So that's 1A, 60.1A. Then 60.1B is about this Vipassana in Myanmar, the history of some of those monks who started all this tradition of Vipassana, the Lady Sayadaw and so on. And then history of the Thai Kamatana monks, the Thai meditation. And then in 60.1C, I'll be examining some of the ideas of the modern psychologists who have been studying these meditators, and some of these meditators have problems, For example, some people, you know, they have mental problems, but what they call difficulties. Then you go into meditation, then there are breakdowns. So what kind of breakdowns, how to identify them, how to prevent them. So this is the last part that I'm researching on. So it's quite an interesting volume, volume 60. It's already 100 over pages just on this part alone. Okay, any questions so far?
Yes, there's one from JB.
Sure. Who's JB?
Sorry?
What's the name, full name?
It just says JB.
Oh, can you please give us your full name? Otherwise we can't include you here, you know. I don't know how you...
JB, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, please. No camera.
JB?
Also.
Yeah, the camera is not on.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We only talk with humans with their names. So give us your full name, please. You can still change. It's not too late. You can change. Type in your full name.
It says my sound system is not working.
Oh, okay. Then type your name. Type your name on the screen so we can see your name, please. Or maybe type on the...
Can you type your full name in the chat?
Chat box also can, yeah. The next round, please put your name on the screen also, yeah.
Not yet type his name or her name.
On this method, yeah.
JH Cole, is it?
Oh,
no,
okay.
It's a different one. Is that you, JB?
I think, yeah. Yeah, probably that's the one. I think Cole or something. Okay, yes. What's the question? Just for this time, please. It'd be nice to know your full name.
In table 10 at form realm, inside the bracket, not stations, pure abodes, Sudavasa, what does this refer to or mean?
Oh, okay, yes. Thanks for asking that, yeah. Sudavasa refers to the non-returners. So they are a special realm. It's not actually a realm at all, the Sudavasa. These are the non-returners. Once they say a human being attains non-returning, so they die, then they exist in that kind of state of mind. So it's not a realm, it's not a planet, it's not a world, it's the state of mind. Like radio waves, you know, it's everywhere, but again, nowhere. And they can communicate with each other if they want to, but they live in this jhana world. So they are a realm unto themselves, the Sudavasa. Only non-returners exist there to finish off their karma and become arahats. Okay. All right. Any other question?
Can I ask this question, Teacher Piya?
Yes.
Just now you mentioned 1 and 2. 1 you say you see inside. The other one, 2 is you see outside. How do you know see inside and see outside? Or how do you distinguish?
These are types of meditation. For example, the person goes into, it depends how the objects he uses during meditation. So in the case of the first one, the object's inside the mind. So he visualizes the object and then he attains jhana. The other one uses the kasinas. So it is outside. So he watches outside, right? The kasina is like colors and so on. So the form is outside. Okay. There are further notes there. Look at the footnote and look at the introductory notes and more details. Okay. Those are meditation types. Yeah. All right.
By the way, Teacher Piya, your exercise regime must have done you good because you look very good now.
Oh, no, it's a holidays, I think. Long holiday.
You look, relaxed and younger.
Oh, yes. I used to joke with Ratna. I said, I'm becoming Benjamin Button. I'm getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
We also disappear when you go younger and younger. You know, you also watch the movie Benjamin Button. This man, Brad Pitt, you know, he instead of growing old, he grew younger and younger. You know, this is a fiction story. So what happens to someone who grows younger and younger? We think it's a wonderful thing. Not really, because you end up younger and younger, you become teenager. After that, become what? A boy. After that, you become a baby, and then smaller and smaller, and there you go. It's another way of dying, you know. So frontwards, backwards, it's the same. Okay.
I mean,
But the
compliment.
body is still sick, you know. So don't let looks.
You look healthy. You look healthy.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
good.
exercising.
I think your exercise
I hope,
regime does you
don't
good.
wait until you're old. The doctors say you start exercising. Don't wait. Start while you're still healthy and young. Okay. Then you build up the stamina. You build up the routine. It's like running marathon. You know, you keep running. Then I see some of these old guys now with still muscle in their body running in the Jurong Lake Gardens area. You know, so they've been maintaining themselves balanced out, you know, body and mind. And then you study sutta. I keep myself healthy so that I can, you know, really spend more time with the suttas.
Very good. Well done.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes, there's one from Patricia.
Sure.
She asks, why are there so many different kinds of meditation practices? Is it good to try different ones?
Okay. Yeah, there are 40 over and much more than 40. In fact, sometimes the Buddha will give specific meditation, unique meditation to different people depending on their needs. So the simple answer is because there are different kinds of personalities, so we all need different ways to dismantle that constructed mind. Okay, the most common, of course, is breath meditation for the Buddha's disciples, and then the Buddha would teach loving kindness for those who believe in the God idea, those who come from Brahmanism especially. So those are the two most common, and then there are others to help people with different personalities. Yeah, so you choose the best that you like. So the most important, if you do breath, there's so many kinds of breath meditation, like, again, so you can try different forms, different methods, and see which one works for you. Yeah, even the counting method also, there's so many different ways of counting. Okay, we still have 15 minutes more to go.
Yes, there's one question from Sogetcha.
Sure.
Yeah, she asks, kindly please explain further on feeling contemplation that lead to non-self during meditation.
Oh, okay. Right. Contemplating on feelings. So now let's say next time you get anger arising. Anger is very easy to meditate on. Yeah. So when you get angry, just sit quietly, and then don't allow this anger to drag you along. Don't allow anger to bully you. Take charge. Say, okay, this is my chance to watch this anger. You know, and this is very easy. Anger is the easiest to overcome. So you sit down, open your eyes, close your eyes, up to you. But look down so that you're not distracted. What is this anger? Follow the Four Noble Truths template. Number one, define. What is it? What is this anger? There's nothing to say about the anger. You watch it, you feel it. Say, wow, this is anger. Not very good feeling, you know. Heart rate high, blood pressure going up, and look very fierce. Don't believe people tell you, oh, you look pretty when you're angry. Not so. Okay? Not healthy. Right? So what is this anger? Look at it, examine it, know it for what it really is. Okay. Then number two, ask, why did I get angry? This is the interesting part. Why did I get angry? And then you try to define it. I got angry because somebody didn't turn off the tap, or somebody said this to me, or said that to me. And you find after a while, it's nothing really, no big deal. You got angry. All right. Then the third one is, say, so what's the big deal here? All right. How do I end it? It's just a thought, right? This is a third noble truth. It's just a thought, you know. I mean, I have reacted in this way, so this is the cause, because this is what I thought, right? So examine the thoughts leading to feeling anger, right? And this is found in the Vitakka Sutta also, right? Tracing your thought backwards. Okay, so this is number 3. And number 4, just smile. 4 is the path. Smile, let it go, and you find it's gone. Okay, so this method basically applies to all feelings. As identify the feeling, what kind of feeling is it? Even if you don't succeed to overcome it right away, you learn to distance yourself from that feeling in the sense that you don't let it overwhelm you. You know what kind of feeling it is, and then you understand that, wow, it causes suffering, so, and you don't want this, all right? So although I say distancing, I don't mean you pretend it doesn't exist. What I'm saying is the only way to really know this feeling is to see from a non-self point of view. Don't own it. Don't use I, me, mine. In other words, once you use I, me, mine, you own it, suffering comes, right? Then you say, why me? Why people are doing this to me? And so on, okay? So that's, of course, basically to see all this as impermanent. Feelings are all mind-made, therefore they're impermanent, and we let go of them. We don't have to hold on to them, okay? All right.
Okay, thank you, Brother Piya.
In the years to come, we look at this, we're really wonderful, you know? I mean, I don't know, some people I see you like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I say, oh, we all change, huh?
Okay.
All right, we're ready.
1, 2, 3, smile.
Okay, New Year smile.
One more. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you.
Well, we are right in the midst of New Year. How time flies, huh? So I hope this year will be a good year for us, that we see the end of COVID. Meantime, don't take things for granted. Always play safe. Keep with the precepts against COVID, like wearing masks and social distancing. These are all the precepts for your safety. Huh? Yeah, that's the way things are. You know, at different times in our history, we have this kind of plague. This is not the first one. There's so many in the past, in Europe, China, and so on. Well, because of trade, people moves around, so all these germs move around. So that's the way things are. Just like information spreads, germs also spread the same way. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you want to announce the next class? The
Okay.
title?
Next
Yeah.
sutta, we probably will be doing the Bhaddekarata Sutta. Remember the Buddha told us, let go of the past, let go of the future, watch the present as it arises. That sutta. Okay, it's quite simple. We'll take a simple one. And then one of these days, I probably will teach you the 16 steps of the breath meditation, okay, especially following all those, what I have studied with all those great teachers of the, you know, Kamatan tradition in Thailand and Myanmar. We see how, eh? So no more questions, eh? We got 1 more minute. All right, so I think we can end now, eh? It's time already, 10 o'clock.
Yes,
Okay, let's get
thank
ready.
Say
So
good
this
night.
is your first year of the tiger lesson. Eh? So calm yourself. Remember this wonderful moment, this first lesson of the year. You have sacrificed your time. You've gathered here. That is your renunciation. You've given up this time for something really good. Remember this. This is the source of your good karma. All right. Remember, our good karma is not merely by way of merits. You know, we're going to reborn happily here and there. More than that, we want to change ourselves so that we are more mindful, we are more happy. And with that, we want to make other people happy, bring joy, happiness, wisdom to them also. Okay. There are many, many kind Buddhists, but we want them to be wise also. So studying sutta is very important. Meditation is very important. Reflecting in that way, we make this asseveration, we make this aspiration. By all these good deeds I've done today, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be at peace with myself. May my mind be clear so that I can study, understand the suttas and grow in wisdom. and I will be patient with other people, including my own failures. Then may my loved ones be well and happy. Think of those people who are important to you, send your loving kindness to them, no matter how far away they are. And finally, we once again express our gratitude to the three jewels, the Buddha, our teacher, the Dhamma, his teaching, and the noble Sangha, those who have practiced and realized his teachings at different levels and are our true examples. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bow down. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangang Namami. Bow down. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, a very happy New Year once again to everyone.
Okay.
So take
Thank
care of
you.
yourself wherever you are.